Today I'm talking all about embroidering on your regular sewing machine. So let's jump into it. Hey guys, it's Elizabeth from ElizabethMadeThis.com, and I'm here to help you sew something creative. If that is up your alley, don't forget to subscribe. Okay. So today I'm going to show you how to embroider without a fancy embroidery machine, just on your regular sewing machine. There's so many wonderful machines out there that do amazing things, but the truth is you can actually embroider really cool stuff on your regular sewing machine. You don't even need a fancy foot. You can use your regular machine foot, and I'm going to show you how you can do that. And I'm also going to show you how you can do that with a free motion embroidery foot, which is a little bit more complicated, but still way within your grasp. And the pattern that I'm going to use is something that I created. This is a little angle rose pattern. You can see I put this on a Texana tank by Blank Slate Patterns, and I've also put it on lots of other things. So the pattern that we're going to use for this is the Angle Roses embroidery template that I created. This is something that I drew and I cleaned it up, and I have a PDF of it available on my website, ElizabethMadeThis.com, for a free download for you guys for when you sign up for my newsletters. I'll put the information for that in the description box below, but you can see it's a simple drawing, and the reason why it's angled is because it really helps you draw kind of straight lines when you're practicing on embroidery. So this is really great kind of simple pattern for beginners, but it's also kind of interesting, and there's lots of little curves, so it really it helps you practice curves. It helps you practice just manipulating your fabric on your machine. So there's lots of good stuff here. So go ahead and download this. So here's how you can add your embroidery to your projects. So let's talk about the 3 different feet that I like to use when I'm embroidering with my regular sewing machine. So first I get the convertible free motion foot, and this is from Janome, but there's other generic and options, and also just options for different brands of sewing machines. My particular Janome does not have the ability to lower the feed dogs like you do with other free motion feet and other machines, so I have this clear plastic cover that's going to go fit over the feed dogs. And then we've got the main part of the free motion foot, which is a shank, so we're going to have to take off the regular shank to fit it on there. And then there's just different options for feet that'll help you see the embroidery a little bit easier or less easier, depending on what you're doing. I really like this U-shaped foot. I think it does a really great job in a lot of places when you're doing free motion embroidery. So then your next option is just the regular straight stitch foot. It's amazing how useful this little guy is. The only thing that is not as great about the straight stitch foot is that it's a little bit hard to see through the end of it. So in that case, I really like this other option, which I have here, which is the applique foot, and that you can see it's clear at the end. It's a little bit wider, so it's a little nicer to just be able to see through a little bit easier, especially if you're working with light colored thread. It's really helpful. So let's go check out the stabilizers. So here is the template that you can download, again, from ElizabethMadeThis.com, and I just have a regular fine line Sharpie marker, and I'm going to grab my stabilizer. So I'm going to use a water-soluble stabilizer, and there's lots of them on the market, but the one that I particularly use is made by Sulky, called Solvy. And it's really great for anything that you trace or any kind of embroidery that you do that's really dense, or there's lots of detail in it. And so this is a good example of that. Some of the tearaways can kind of tear away the stitches, so this is really awesome because when you're done stitching, you can just rinse away everything, and it works just really great. So I'm going to put the Solvy over it. You can see it's a really clear kind of filmy mesh, and I am going to just trace over it with my marker, and I'm just going to trace all over the lines. You can see how well you can see through this, so it's wonderful for using for embroidery because you can see exactly where your lines are when you're stitching, and it's kind of magic. But when you rinse away that stabilizer, the magic marker that's in there kind of goes away too. So there's no picking out little bits of stabilizer like you can with some of the tearaways that are out there when you're doing embroidery. So I'm just going to finish up tracing this. And then when you get done tracing it, then you can see I've got the whole thing out there. It looks like I missed one of the lines, so I'll add that later. But just go ahead and trace it out, cut it out with, leave about like a 1-inch border around everything, and that'll just help you lay everything out. So now I have it centered on my project. So this is my tank top, and I'm just using a regular old glue stick to tack down the corners of the stabilizer, and that will just help it keep it in place while we're stitching on the machine. And now it's ready to sew. So before we start stitching, it's a good idea to make a little thread sampler to help you decide what kind of thread colors you want to use. Darker colors of thread you work better on lighter colored fabrics, and lighter colored threads work better on dark colored fabrics. This will help the details of your design pop out really, really nicely. So I've got my tank top set up to stitch out, and I have, because I'm working on knit fabric, I'm using a zigzag stitch with a 0.5 width, so very narrow, and a 2.0 length. And I like that short stitch length because it helps me get a lot of really good detail. And I'm just going to stitch along with my applique foot, with my lowered presser foot, just along all of those lines that we've traced. And when I get to the end of one, I'm going to pivot everything, lift the presser foot, and put it back down again, and just keep stitching. So I am moving it around, lifting my presser foot, and my feed dogs are still there, so the machine is still working like it would normally when you're just normally stitching. So that's why we have to lift the presser foot. But again, this is a really, really great option for machine embroidery, and it's really very, very versatile. And you can go over the lines multiple times. That kind of gives you a more bold look to your stitching. You can think of it like a bold font versus a regular font. So those lines you've gone over multiple times will just pop out a little bit more. So I'm going to continue stitching out my design. When you're working on the roses, it's a good idea to start from the outside and work your way towards the middle. If you get to a point where you go to a different part of the design because you couldn't stitch in a straight line, go ahead and just lift your needle and pull out the thread and cut the tails and just start in a new place. That's totally a fine way to do it. And when you get to an end point, go ahead and back stitch a couple stitches over your stitches so that they'll just be locked in place. And I'm just going to finish stitching out everything, and then I'll show you how we can just remove the rest of the solvay. You can see I really like that a little bit extra stitches in the where the leaf is, just so that leaf pops out a little bit more from the rest of the flower. And you can always use your back stitch foot to go over lines too. That's also another really good way to keep using your lines, and that can keep you from having to lift your presser foot all the time too. So that's a nice other option for working with the applique foot. So now I'm just going to remove the excess solvay. So first thing I'm going to do is just kind of pull away the extra bits on the side and clip off my threads that are hanging out on the top side of the fabric and also the wrong side of the fabric. You can cut away the extra solvay or pull it gently to get most of it off, or you can just do what I'm going to do, which is just dissolve the whole thing in water. So I've got a little tiny bowl of water, and when I'm done cutting all my threads, then I will just put it in there, and it's just going to dissolve kind of like magic. It's like those packing peanuts that you can dissolve in water. That's kind of how the solly works. You put it in the water and it dissolves. But you can see how nice the back is too. It's got just this really, really no distortion, great stitching, great tension on the back side of it. So it looks really, really lovely, which is wonderful. So I'm going to dip it in my water, and it's just going to dissolve straight away. I'm going to wring the water and then just blot the excess, and I'm just going to let it dry, and then I can keep working on my project. And you can always use this design on an already made object, like a t-shirt that you find. Oh, and the purple is some of the glue from the glue stick. So don't worry about that, it'll wash out too. So for my samples that I did earlier, I am going to show you how I can add a little bit of color to this design. So I've got my design here, and this is on a woven cotton quilting fabric, and I am just going to take a washable marker and kind of lift up underneath the design and just kind of make a rough kind of oval circle thing under where I want to add some color. So that's for one of the roses, and then I'm going to do the same thing for the other rose. So I'm just going to just stitch in kind of a rough sort of manner before I actually sew through and stitch out the actual roses design. And let's go and set up the machine for free motion embroidery. So to set up the machine for free motion embroidery, I have to use a screwdriver to remove the screw and the shank that all the other feet attach to. And that's particular to my machine, but a lot of machines work like this. And you might just check your manual if you have a different setup, but you're probably going to have to remove something or other. And so now I'm grabbing my free motion foot, and I am going to use that same screw to go through the side of it, and that'll attach the shank back into the machine. And then my foot is all set up from there, and I'll be ready to stitch. The last thing I want to do is add the little cover plate that's going to go over my feed dogs. I have this for my machine because I cannot lower the feed dogs on my machine. If you can lower the feed dogs on your machine, just check your manual, and this will help you be able to move the needle anywhere you want it to go without having to worry about stopping and lowering and raising the pressing foot. So now I'm set up for free motion. I didn't mention it before, but I have backed the wrong side of this fabric with a fusible interfacing, which will help the stitches be nice on the back side of it. The tension's a little bit dicier with the free motion foot because it sits a little bit higher than the fabric would normally. Normally your fabric is right against the feed dog, so it helps get nice even tension. So that's kind of a little bit of a learning curve when you're using the free motion foot. What is really nice is that you just kind of stitch wherever you want to after that. So here I'm just laying down that color before I add the roses template over it. So I'm just adding that little bit of hot pink and that little bit of peach over everything, and it'll look really, really nice. And I also want to move the needle so that it's in the center of that U-shaped foot. The default position is a little bit over to the left, and I actually found it difficult to use this foot with a zigzag because the default position for a zigzag is a little bit over to the left. So this foot is a little bit hard to use with knit fabrics. So that's something to keep in mind. So now I'm just finishing out adding that extra layer of color before I add my design. And then I'm going to grab my extra trace design of the roses when I finish this off in a second. So just clip your threads when you get to the end, and then grab the glue stick and the same thing as we did before. Just tack down the corners of the solvi over the design and just stitch away. And again, the freedom of the free motion foot, and I'm going to change thread colors because I've had that peach in there, so I'm going to change to that navy color because I think it'll look really nice against this lighter colored fabric. So I'm threading my needle. But the advantage of this particular foot is that I can stitch wherever and I don't have to pivot and lift everything and keep lifting the presser foot. I can just keep my needle moving. And I would say too, it's really good to go at kind of a slower pace when you're doing this, because it's a very foreign motion when you get going. But once you play around with it for a few minutes, then it will become kind of second nature. And I still find myself pivoting anyway, even though I've done this for a long time. But just keep stitching around. Again, I like going over those lines multiple times at places and not in others. Just keep stitching out the design, and if you get to the end of a place, then go over those last couple stitches a couple times to lock it in place. And you can always just move your thread out of the way or clip the threads and start in a different area if you weren't stitching in a totally continuous line. And when you get done, then snip your threads and dissolve the solvay just like you did in the earlier example. And that is how you can stitch out an embroidery without a fancy embroidery machine. Download that I made. This is the Texana tank by Blank Slate Patterns, and I just made it up really quick. And I added the angle roses embroidery on it, and I just did a simple outline in navy thread. So this is just a simple way to go and start with the design. And then the next level of difficulty, if you will, is that I put it on a little bag, and I have a tutorial for making a really quick and simple zipper bag. This is a little bit of a variation on that, but I'll go ahead and link that here if you want to check out how I made this kind of zipper bag. Just super fast and easy. But before I did that, I did do my embroidery template again on this, but you can see I added a little bit of color on that. So I did I used my free motion foot, and I just put the peach, and I kind of just drew a rough circle in the area that I wanted to embroider around, and I did a rough circle again over here, and I did the hot pink over here, and then I did the template on top of that. So it was kind of a two-step sort of process, but you can see how different the character of the embroidery is when you just add a little bit of color. And I also put it on a skirt. I am not wearing that skirt right now, but I will show you that. The designer's stitch lily wrap skirt. So on my skirt that I did, I added a little bit. I added 3 different motifs of the embroidery on one side of the skirt to give it a little bit different feel. And it's really different when you add multiple of the same kind of thing. You almost think, oh, maybe this is yardage of that, but you can kind of be strategic and just kind of put things where you want them, and it's fun to try that. And the last thing that I did is I made a necklace out of it. It's actually a clip too, so you could technically like wear it as like a little clip, or you could put it in your hair if you're a really funky fascinator kind of thing. I didn't take pictures of that because I thought that's a little bit out there. But hey, the thought exists that you could indeed make this into a hair clip of some sort. But that's why my chain is not exactly attached right now, because I did make it. I made it removable so that I could take it off if I wanted to wear it. If I wanted to wear it like a clip or a very crazy fascinator. But on this particular one, let me put it on this version of the template, I quilted it actually. So there's 3 layers here. There's baddies in between here, there's a backing, and then there's this top fabric. And I just had a rough rectangle of this. I didn't cut it down or anything, and then I put my template on top of that, and I sewed through everything. I just did the outline first, and then I went back over with my colored threads, and I just kind of colored in between the lines. So this is like fancy coloring book kind of thing with your sewing machine. So all you do is just add your color in between the lines of the outline on the template when you finish it. So again, you get a totally different feel from this. And to finish off the necklace, I
just drew rough lines around the everything to frame it, and I just zigzagged the raw. I cut it out and I zigzagged the raw edges. So really simple. And I added 2 jump clips, I added 2 jump rings, and I just sewed those on, and then I just added my chain to make a little necklace. So again, those are my ideas for what you could do with this template, but I want to know how you would use this template. So go to my website, check it out, download it. It is my gift to you. And yeah, please tag me on Instagram at Elizabeth Made This and show me what you got with the angle roses. Thank you so much for watching. I have to say that I just hit 2,000 subscribers, which I'm really excited about. That's wonderful. So I have something really special planned, although it's going to take me a little bit. I've been working really hard on this embroidery template and then our life got really kind of crazy with soccer and baseball, so I'm behind on that, but rest assured something really, really cool is coming, so don't miss that. But thank you so much for watching, and happy sewing! Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the embroidery template, and there's lots of other great stuff here on Elizabeth Made This. So if this is your first time here, don't forget to click or tap to subscribe. Thanks for watching!